50 guests, catered food, the perfect opportunity to show off his success as medical director of Riverside Hospital. I'd been dreading it for weeks, ever since my diagnosis. Stage 3 brain tumor. Inoperable location. Radiation and chemotherapy starting immediately. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had sat me down 3 days ago and explained everything in careful detail. The seizure risk, the cognitive symptoms, the urgency of beginning treatment. Lily, you need to start radiation by next week, she'd said. This tumor is in a critical location. Waiting even a few weeks significantly increases risk. I'm admitting you to Riverside Hospital on Monday for the initial treatment protocols. Riverside Hospital, where my father was medical director. I'd called him that evening to explain. To tell him I needed to be admitted to his hospital. That I'd need time off work, family support, understanding. A brain tumor. His voice carried skepticism. Lily, are you sure? You've always been a bit of a hypochondriac. Remember when you convinced yourself you had mono in college? Dad, I have the MRI results. Dr. Mitchell showed me the tumor. It's real. How big? About 2 centimeters in my temporal lobe. 2 centimeters? That's tiny. Barely worth worrying about. These young doctors always over-dramatize to cover themselves legally. You probably just need to reduce stress and take some supplements. Dad, Dr. Mitchell says I need immediate radiation therapy. Mitchell? Sarah Mitchell? She's barely 5 years out of residency. Way too aggressive with treatment protocols. I've had to rein her in multiple times at board meetings. He sighed. Lily, trust me. I'm medical director of a major hospital. I know when treatment is actually necessary. This sounds like overreaction to a minor abnormality. It's not minor. It's stage 3. It could cause seizures. Stage 3 of what, exactly? Brain tumors don't use traditional staging. If Mitchell is using that terminology, she's already dramatizing. Look, come to the barbecue Monday. We'll discuss it calmly. I'll look at your films myself and give you a real medical opinion, not some alarmist nonsense from an inexperienced oncologist. He'd hung up before I could explain that Monday was when I was supposed to start treatment. Now I stood in Dad's immaculate backyard, watching him hold court near the grill, surrounded by colleagues from the hospital. I recognized several faces, board members, department heads, senior physicians. The people who determined hospital policy and held Dad accountable for medical standards. My brother Derek found me by the drinks table. You look terrible, Lil. Are you okay? Brain tumor. Stage 3. I'm supposed to start radiation tomorrow, but Dad thinks it's not serious. Derek's face went white. What? Lily, you need to get treatment immediately. Why aren't you at the hospital right now? Dad said Dr. Mitchell is overreacting. That it's too small to worry about. He wants to look at my MRI himself and give me his medical opinion. His medical opinion? He's an administrator, not an oncologist. Lily, this is insane. Before I could respond, Dad's voice boomed across the yard. Lily, come here, honey. I want you to meet some people. I walked over slowly, my head throbbing. The headaches had been getting worse all week, one of the symptoms Dr. Mitchell had warned me about. Dad had his arm around a silver-haired woman I recognized as Patricia Hendricks, chair of the hospital board. Beside her stood 2 other board members and Dr. Robert Chen, chief of medicine. Patricia, Robert, you remember my daughter Lily. She's being a bit dramatic about some health issues, as daughters do. He laughed, squeezing my shoulder too hard. Tell them about your tiny tumor, sweetheart. The board members' smiles faltered. It's not tiny, I said quietly. It's 2 centimeters in my temporal lobe. Stage 3. Dr. Mitchell wants to start radiation immediately. Dad waved dismissively. See what I mean? Stage 3 felt like it's some kind of cancer. Brain tumors don't work that way. And Mitchell is known for being overly aggressive. Probably trying to pad her treatment numbers. He turned to Dr. Chen. Robert, you know how these young oncologists are. Always pushing unnecessary interventions. Dr. Chen's expression had shifted from friendly to professional. Jack, if Dr. Mitchell has recommended immediate radiation for a temporal lobe tumor, she has good reason. She's one of our best oncologists. She's inexperienced and alarmist, Dad said flatly. Lily doesn't need radiation. She needs to stop Googling symptoms and stressing herself out. I've told her to take some aspirin and get more sleep. This will probably resolve on its own. Patricia Hendricks spoke carefully. Jack, your daughter has a diagnosed brain tumor and you're recommending aspirin. It's 2 centimeters, Patricia. Barely noticeable on imaging. Not worth the risks of radiation therapy. My vision blurred slightly. The headache was intensifying, and I felt a strange tingling in my left hand, another symptom Dr. Mitchell had warned about. Dad, I need to sit down. See? Anxiety. Classic psychosomatic response. He looked at his colleagues. She's always been like this. High-strung, emotional, turns every minor issue into a medical emergency. I have an MRI showing a tumor, I said, my voice shaking. Dr. Mitchell explained everything. The seizure risk, the cognitive symptoms, why immediate treatment is critical. Mitchell filled your head with worst-case scenarios to justify aggressive treatment. It's how she operates. Dad turned to the board members. I've actually been meaning to discuss Mitchell's treatment protocols at the next board meeting. She's costing the hospital money with unnecessary procedures. Dr. Chen's face had gone hard. Jack, Dr. Mitchell's protocols are evidence-based and thoroughly reviewed. If she's recommending immediate radiation for your daughter's tumor, you should listen to her. I'm medical director of this hospital, Robert. I think I can assess whether my own daughter needs treatment. You're not an oncologist, Dr. Chen said quietly. And she's your daughter, which means you have a massive conflict of interest. There's no conflict because there's no crisis. Lily is fine. She just needs to stop being dramatic. The tingling in my hand was spreading. I fumbled for my phone, knowing I should call Dr. Mitchell, should get to a hospital, should do something. But Dad's voice kept washing over me, dismissing, minimizing, erasing the reality of what was happening in my brain. Patricia Hendricks was watching me closely. Lily, when did you last see Dr. Mitchell? 3 days ago. She showed me the MRI. Explained the tumor location and why waiting is dangerous. She wanted to admit me tomorrow to start radiation protocols. And your father discouraged this. He said I'm overreacting. That Dr. Mitchell is too aggressive. That I should wait and see if it resolves on its own. The silence was deafening. Jack, Patricia said carefully, are you aware that advising your daughter to delay treatment for a diagnosed brain tumor could constitute medical negligence? It's not negligence to provide a second opinion, Dad said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. I'm trying to protect her from unnecessary medical intervention. You're not a neurological oncologist, Dr. Chen said. You have no expertise in brain tumors. And you're advising your daughter to ignore the treatment plan of a qualified specialist. That's not a second opinion. That's dangerous interference. Dad's face was reddening. I don't appreciate being questioned in my own home. Dad, I interrupted, pulling out my phone. I recorded our conversation from 3 days ago. When you told me not to get treatment. When you said Dr. Mitchell was overreacting and I should just take aspirin. His face went white. You recorded me. I wanted documentation. In case something happened. In case I had a seizure or the tumor got worse because I delayed treatment. My hands were shaking as I pulled up the audio file. Should I play it? So everyone can hear exactly what you said. Lily, that's completely unnecessary. I think the board should hear it, Patricia said firmly, given the serious nature of these allegations. I pressed play. Dad's voice filled the backyard, clear and dismissive. 2 centimeters? That's tiny. Barely worth worrying about. You probably just need to reduce stress and take some supplements. Mitchell is barely 5 years out of residency. Way too aggressive. Trust me, I'm medical director of a major hospital. I know when treatment is actually necessary. The recording continued for 3 minutes. Every dismissive piece of advice to avoid treatment. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Patricia's expression was granite. Jack, did you actually tell your daughter, a patient with a diagnosed stage 3 brain tumor, to take supplements instead of getting radiation therapy? I was providing perspective, Dad said weakly. I didn't want her to panic. You gave medical advice outside your area of expertise, Dr. Chen said, his voice cold. You discouraged critical treatment. You called a qualified oncologist alarmist and aggressive. And you did all of this with a patient who happens to be your daughter, creating both a medical ethics violation and a profound breach of parental duty. Other guests had gathered, drawn by the confrontation. I recognized more hospital staff, including Dr. Mitchell herself, who must have arrived late. She took one look at me and immediately came to my side. "Lily, you look terrible. Are you having symptoms?" She checked my pupils with a penlight from her pouch. "Your left pupil is slightly dilated. That's a concerning sign with temporal lobe involvement. We need to get you to the hospital right now." "Mitchell, this is not the time," Dad started. "This is exactly the time," Dr. Mitchell said sharply. "Your daughter is symptomatic with a dangerous brain tumor and you've been preventing her from getting treatment. That ends now." She turned to Patricia Hendricks. "I'm formally requesting emergency board intervention. As medical director, Dr. Hayes has used his position and authority to interfere with critical patient care, his own daughter's care. This represents a serious ethics violation and potential criminal medical negligence." Patricia nodded slowly. "Dr. Chen, please call an ambulance for Lily. She needs immediate hospital admission and evaluation." She turned to Dad. "Jack, as board chair, I'm placing you on immediate administrative leave pending an emergency ethics committee review. You are not to set foot in Riverside Hospital or interfere in any way with your daughter's treatment. Do you understand?" "Patricia, you can't be serious." "I'm absolutely serious. You've demonstrated catastrophically poor medical judgment and ethical violations that call into question your fitness to serve as medical director. The board will convene an emergency meeting tomorrow morning." Dad looked around at his colleagues, his guests, searching for support. He found none. The doctors and board members who'd been laughing at his jokes 10 minutes ago now looked at him with disgust or pity. "This is an overreaction," he said desperately. "I was just trying to prevent unnecessary treatment." "You were preventing necessary treatment," Dr. Mitchell said. "There's a significant difference. And if Lily experiences a seizure or neurological damage because of the delay you caused, you could face criminal charges for medical negligence." The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. Paramedics loaded me onto a stretcher while Dr. Mitchell explained my symptoms and diagnosis. Dad tried to approach, but Dr. Chen physically stepped between us. "You've done enough damage," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Stay away from her." At the hospital, they admitted me immediately to the neuro-oncology unit. Dr. Mitchell ordered emergency scans and consultations. The MRI showed the tumor had grown slightly in the 3 days since my last scan, exactly what she'd warned would happen with any delay. "We're starting radiation tomorrow morning," she said firmly. "No more delays. Your father's interference could have been catastrophic." My brother Derek had followed the ambulance to the hospital. He sat with me in the room, his face pale with anger and fear. "I can't believe Dad did this. I can't believe he risked your life to prove some point about his medical authority." "He genuinely doesn't think it's serious," I said. "Or he's convinced himself it's not serious because admitting it would mean admitting he's not the ultimate medical authority. Either way, it's indefensible." The hospital board convened their emergency meeting the next morning while I was in my first radiation session. By the time I returned to my room, the decision had been made. Dad was terminated as medical director, effective immediately. The board cited gross medical negligence, ethics violations, and abuse of position. They referred the case to the state medical board for potential license review. His 20-year career at Riverside Hospital was over. Dr. Mitchell came to tell me personally, "Lily, I want you to know that the board took this extremely seriously. Your father's actions represented exactly the kind of medical arrogance and poor judgment that endangers patients. They won't tolerate it." "Will he lose his license?" "That's up to the state medical board. But given that he gave dangerous medical advice outside his area of expertise and prevented critical treatment, it's possible." She paused. "I know he's your father. This must be complicated. He told me my brain tumor was tiny and not worth worrying about. He called me dramatic and a hypochondriac. He scheduled a barbecue instead of supporting my treatment." I felt tears sting my eyes. I don't know what I feel except relief that someone finally stopped him. The story leaked within days. A medical director fired for preventing his own daughter's cancer treatment. Social media erupted. Medical ethics blogs analyzed the case. News outlets requested interviews. Dad tried to control the narrative, claiming he'd been misunderstood, that the recording was taken out of context. But too many people had witnessed his behavior at the barbecue. Too many hospital staff had seen his pattern of dismissing Dr. Mitchell's expertise. The evidence was overwhelming. The state medical board launched their investigation 2 weeks later. I testified, explaining the timeline, the symptoms, the delays Dad had caused. Dr. Mitchell testified about the medical necessity of immediate treatment and the risks of the delay. The board members from the barbecue testified about what they'd witnessed. The board's decision took 3 months. Dad received a formal reprimand and mandatory ethics education. His medical license was placed on probationary status for 2 years. Any future violations would result in permanent revocation. He blamed me entirely. The one text I received before blocking his number: "I hope you're proud of yourself. You've destroyed my career over a misunderstanding. I was trying to protect you from unnecessary treatment and this is how you repay me." I deleted it without responding. My radiation treatment lasted 6 weeks. The tumor shrank significantly. Dr. Mitchell was optimistic about long-term prognosis. My symptoms gradually improved: fewer headaches, no more tingling, no seizures. Derek visited regularly, apologizing repeatedly for not intervening sooner, for not questioning Dad's dismissiveness. I should have known better. I should have pushed back. You didn't have medical training. You trusted Dad's expertise. That's not your fault. Mom tried to stay neutral, which meant supporting Dad's narrative that he'd been wronged. Our relationship became strained and distant. Eventually, I stopped trying to maintain it. 6 months after treatment ended, I was declared in remission. Dr. Mitchell hugged me at the appointment, tears in her eyes. "You saved your own life by recording that conversation," she said. "By insisting on being heard. By not letting your father's dismissiveness override medical reality. You saved my life by taking me seriously. By fighting for my treatment even when it cost you professionally." She smiled. "It didn't cost me professionally. If anything, the board respects me more now. They saw a doctor willing to advocate for her patient against the medical director himself. That takes courage they appreciate." A year after my diagnosis, Riverside Hospital invited me to speak at their annual ethics. Our medical director's arrogance and conflict of interest had nearly prevented life-saving treatment. How the board's swift action had protected both me and future patients. I stood at the podium, looking out at doctors, administrators, and board members, and told the truth. About Dad's dismissiveness. About the recording. About the barbecue confrontation. About the board's decisive intervention. "My father called my brain tumor tiny and told me to take aspirin," I concluded. But it wasn't tiny. It was dangerous, growing, potentially fatal. The only thing tiny was his willingness to see me as a patient who deserved proper care rather than a daughter who should trust his medical authority without question. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Dad never apologized. Never acknowledged that he'd been wrong. Never reached out to ask how I was doing or if I was in remission. But I didn't need his acknowledgement anymore. The hospital board had listened. Dr. Mitchell had fought for me. The medical ethics system had worked exactly as it should. And I was alive, cancer-free, building a life surrounded by people who took my health seriously. Dad had mocked my tiny tumor at a barbecue full of witnesses. And those witnesses had ended his career. Sometimes justice doesn't require forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes it just requires people with power who are willing to use it when they see something unconscionable. And sometimes the tiny tumor everyone dismisses turns out to be the thing that reveals who people truly are, and what they truly value. I'd learned the hard way that my father valued his ego more than my life. But I'd also learned that there were doctors, board members, and medical professionals who valued patient care more than protecting their colleagues. That knowledge,